He was very kind, and he always came up with the right words at the right time. And of course, he understood people. He understood what their issues were. He understood each heart and mind. Another role confusion could be being defensive instead of empathetic. The counselor may at times feel threatened and criticized when his efforts aren't helping, which hinders the ability to listen empathetically. When such arises, we need to ask ourselves why it affects us like this. The counselor can talk to a fellow counselor about it. So some counselees may be critical, may be judgmental, may be critical of our counseling style or method or our time together, the relationship, and so the counselor must make sure that they don't become defensive and start arguing, or because it will bias the way that we talk to the counselee. The counselor needs to be vigilant about avoiding these confusions that we've just talked about and slipping into unhealthy counseling roles. Sometimes it may be necessary to restructure the relationship. For example, setting appropriate boundaries, setting firm counseling hours, refusing to drop everything else whenever they call, or becoming less directive, etc. The most important concept to keep in mind is that Christ is really the counselor. We are his agents doing his work, representing him. His Holy Spirit is our comforter and guide, and will lead us to deliver those he has brought to us for help. So now, let's talk about the counselor's vulnerability. Not all counselors want help, not all counselees want help or are honest and will cooperate fully in the counseling. Some counselees have a conscious or unconscious desire to manipulate, frustrate, or not cooperate. It is always difficult to work with resistant and non-cooperative people. The counselor becomes vulnerable by agreeing to help people, opening themselves up to the possibility of power struggles, exploitation, and failure. So some counselees, they may come for counseling, but it seems that some of them may have different motivations for coming for counseling. And here are 3 common ways by which counselees may frustrate the counselor and increase his or her vulnerability. One could be manipulation. Some people are masters at getting what they want by controlling others. Some people will manipulate the counselor by appealing to their desire to help, exploiting their compassionate heart, becoming very helpless, and then getting the counselor to meet their many needs. For example, running errands or visiting frequently outside the counseling time or lending them money, etc. Manipulated counselors are not helpful counselors. They are reinforcing the manipulative behavior of the counselee, whose behavior may be intentional or it could be even subconscious. Some people may know that they're manipulative, and they are intending to get something and in a sense being dishonest, but others may not know it. It could be a learned behavior of manipulation, and they might not even realize that they're doing this. The counselor needs to be wise and continually ask, am I being manipulated? Am I going beyond my responsibilities as a counselor? What does the counselee really want? Sometimes they may really want your help with a problem, but sometimes they really want your attention and time, your sanctioning of a sinful or otherwise harmful behavior, or your support as an ally in a conflict. When you suspect dishonesty and manipulation, it is wise to take this up with the counselee and restructure the counseling relationship to prevent manipulation and exploitation of the counselor in the future. I knew an older woman who she was helping another older woman. So there's I guess it was in middle age when she was helping another person. It was a relative really who had some needs, and this was a Christian woman who was helping her, and so she would go and listen and try to be a good kind of a listener and a counselor to her and provide what she needs. But the person who was needy was kind of manipulative and would take on a role of a very dependent, and then would become very dependent on this person. And so the helper, the Christian lady, was getting called at all times and to come over, and sometimes it was an emergency, or at least she said it was an emergency, and so the lady who was needy, she wasn't really getting helped, but she was just, it seemed that she was needing the helper as a kind of a crutch, and she was never able to actually stand on her own 2 feet. And perhaps that's the kind of relationship it was. Perhaps the Lord had her there to just help her, but it seemed that the needy one just kept going downhill, deteriorating, and eventually this relationship was over several years, and eventually the lady's mind deteriorated, and the helper was exhausted, but nevertheless continued to help the lady. But we could see that there was some of this where it's kind of manipulative, and coming across as someone who continually needs, and did not even seem to have an interest in getting better, getting healthy, being able to be responsible for their own behavior. These are 3 common ways by which counselees may frustrate the counselor and increase his or her vulnerability. Another one is counter-transference. This occurs when the counselor's own needs interfere with the therapeutic relationship. When the counseling session becomes a place for solving the counselor's own problems, the counselee will likely not be helped. And the counselor may be tempted to say things he will later regret. The counselor needs to recognize when they're becoming so emotionally entangled with the counselee, that their objectivity and hence counseling effectiveness have been compromised. I'm just going to change this. So the counselor needs to recognize when they are becoming so emotionally entangled with the counselee that their objectivity and hence their counseling effectiveness have been compromised. In such a case, it may be helpful to discuss it with a perceptive friend or other counselor. So this is where I think we talked about this a bit before, where the counselor's own needs become entangled in the counseling relationship. Resistance. Some counselees may put up resistance to being helped when they realize that help and relief is not immediate, or that it will require changes or greater pain or giving up something that they're unwilling to give up. Then there are some people who get a sense of power or accomplishment by frustrating the efforts of others, including counselors. There's some people will go to a counseling session and they feel a sense of power when they are able to resist the counselor's counsel and frustrate the counselor. And it's a kind of, they become playing a kind of a game then. Let the counselee know that he or she is responsible ultimately for improvement or non-improvement, not the counselor. The counselor provides a structural relationship, avoids getting on the defensive, and must recognize that one's effectiveness as a counselor is not always correlated with the improvement rate of counselees. There are some questions that the counselor can frequently ask themselves to keep alert to potential problems. Here's the questions that they can ask themselves. Why do I say this is the worst or best person I have ever counseled? Why? This is, if you think, this is the worst person I've ever counseled, then you must have to think, why do I say that? Why do I say that? What is it about them? Or what is it about them that's the best? Or is there a reason why I or the counselee always arrive late? Why is it perhaps because we don't look forward to this session? Maybe that's why always arriving late. Is there a reason why I or the counselee wants more or less time than we had agreed previously? It could be nothing more than just it's not convenient, or it could be something more, some kind of entanglement, emotional entanglement. Do I overreact to statements this counselee makes? So the counselor needs to think when the counselee makes certain statements, do they get angry inside? Do they get anxious? Do they get frustrated? Do they find themselves just wanting to argue? Do I feel bored when I'm with this person? Is this because of the counselee, me, or both of us? So if the counselor is feeling bored, he's not going to be listening very well. In fact, he might even go to sleep, which is, that would certainly not go over well with the counselee. Why do I always disagree or agree with this counselee? So you could ask this question and try and think, why is it that I always disagree with them? Or why is it that I always agree with them? Is it something personal? Is it a clash of ideas or ideals or worldview? Do I find myself wanting to end this relationship or to hold on to it even though it should end? So, do I find I just want to get out of this relationship? Do I find I don't want to see this person ever again? Or on the other side, do I find, I want to keep going with this relationship. I don't want it to end. So we have to ask ourselves these questions to make sure that everything is appropriate in what we're doing. Am I beginning to feel too much sympathy for the counselee? It could be that you feel sympathy for the counselee, but perhaps there's needing to be, perhaps the sympathy is misplaced. For example, if the counselee is coming to you with a marriage problem, and the counselee perhaps is thinking of divorce, and you're feeling very much sympathy with them, you might be actually helping encourage them to divorce, or encouraging them in something that is not healthy for them. Another one is, do I think about the counselee frequently between sessions, daydream about him or her, or show an unusual interest in the person or the problem? And if so, why? So that would seem to be not quite a healthy relationship there, or attitude toward the counselee there. Thinking about them, daydreaming about them, showing an unusual interest in the person. All right, let's take a break.